Hello, this is Jack Skeen, and welcome to the basic course in the Circle Blueprint system. In Lesson 1, we discussed how to motivate yourself to make the necessary changes to have an amazing life. And we covered a few important issues. The first we called units of potential. And we posed the question, if each person has 10 units of potential, how many are you currently using? You may have a sense that you're using less than your 10. Perhaps you're using 5 or 6 or 7. And the implication is that if you're only using 7 of your 10 units, how much more wonderful and amazing would your life be if you were using 9 or 10? And this course is an effort to extract from you more of those units of potential. Next, we covered the thriving scale. The thriving scale is the opportunity to look at the current state of your life and to kind of assess where it is right now. We have 5 positions on the thriving scale. First, you could be hanging on by your fingernails, which means your life is kind of stuck and not in a very good place. Or you could be eroding, which means you have bad habits that if you continue in those ways, they're going to erode and undermine your life and the quality of what you could have and be. Or you could be treading water, which means your life is okay, but it's not getting any better, it's not getting any worse, it's probably a little bit boring if you're honest. Or you could be growing, which is a wonderful place to be because you can feel your life getting stronger, becoming more interesting, richer. But the last category is thriving, and this is where we want you to take responsibility to get yourself and your life. When you're thriving, you're creatively engaged in all that you do. You're perfectly balanced. Your life is as rich and full and meaningful and purposeful and successful as it could possibly be. It's all of your potential being used. What a wonderful place that would be. And finally, we talked about the boiled frog, how easy it is for human beings to just accommodate their circumstance, to have less than what they were meant to have or who they were meant to be, and to make that okay, and not take the steps to make the necessary changes they need to make, and watch their life just gradually dry up until the richness they could have is gone. And what a shame that is for people to let that happen to themselves. Today we move on to cover Lesson 2. Lesson 2 is about your circle. The concept of a circle is a basic idea in the Circle Blueprint system, and in some ways it's quite simple. We're going to cover these topics in this lesson. Your circle and why it's important. Expanding your circle and the implications. The 4 factors necessary for circle expansion. And balancing the 4 factors. Let's get started. So the idea of a circle is a concept to help you see what's really important to you, what matters to you. Why you get out of bed in the morning. Everybody has something they're trying to accomplish, some reason to get out of bed, but often we don't really think about it. We don't take the time to notice what really is important. I know for many years, when my children were young, what was most important for me was just providing financially for my family. It consumed my thoughts. It's what drove me to go to work. It defined my circle. And there are good things and maybe not so good things about that. But it's important for you to at least think through what's in your circle. Let's consider some possibilities. Someone can have a very small circle. You might get out of bed every morning only for your own pleasure. So you only get up to do what you want to do. You have no interest in doing what you don't want to do or what somebody else wants you to do. You certainly don't want a job because a boss would be telling you what to do. You certainly don't want a spouse because a spouse would have needs that would require your attention. So it's highly likely that you just live a life of your own satisfaction. If you do drugs, it would make sense. Why not? They feel good. If you don't have a job, I get it, because a job's sometimes difficult. But it probably means you won't own a home, or you won't have a family, or you won't have many friends, or you won't succeed very much in life because living a life around your own pleasure is so limiting. So consider what is important to you. Perhaps you have a family. They're important to you. But why are they important? What are you trying to accomplish with your family? Your health could be important. But what's important about your health? Do you want to look a certain way? Do you want to feel a certain way? Do you want to create longevity? In order for you to really understand what's in your circle, you have to not only know what matters to you, but why it matters and what you're trying to accomplish with each of those issues. So here are some of the circle issues that you might consider. Your family could be your family of origin or the family you're creating. Your marriage or your committed relationship. Your health. Your work, your career. Is it important to you? Why is it important to you? What are you trying to accomplish in your work? Your community. You might care about the people who live around you. Your own relaxation might be important. It might be a very rich opportunity for you. Your happiness could be important. Nothing wrong with that. You may have some sense of purpose for your life that's really important to you. Having fun could be important. Your own personal growth could be important. Friends or hobbies can be important issues in your circle. Use this list to consider what matters to you right now and what you're trying to accomplish in whichever area you have in your circle. So your circle homework is to draw a circle on a piece of paper, very simple. And then inside the circle, write everything that's important to you. Take your time doing this. Really reflect on it. The second issue we're going to cover today is expanding your circle. Now, when you were a little baby, your circle really was about your own pleasure. All that mattered to you was that you felt good. So when you had a full stomach and a dry diaper, you were happy as a bug. But when the opposite was true, when you were hungry or your diaper was wet, you just screamed bloody murder until somebody came and took care of you. You didn't care whether you were getting them up in the middle of the night. You didn't care if you were interrupting their meal. You didn't care at all about their life. You only cared about your wet diaper and your empty stomach. But as you grew, other people became important. Like your parents became important. You cared what they thought of you. And so you learned to kind of delay some of your needs, to kind of take care of yourself, to unburden them. And that responsibility of taking care of yourself changed you. It matured you. It made you more independent. So that's a natural way. Almost everybody's circle has expanded. Then consider, perhaps you're in a committed relationship, like a marriage. Well, before you were in that relationship, you were free. You came and went as you pleased. You spent your money however you chose. You spent time with whomever you wanted to, however you wanted to do it, and there were no implications for anybody else. You were free. And then you chose to put another person in your circle. You formed a committed relationship. And in many ways, you gave up freedom to do that. Now, almost everything you do, how you spend your money, where you spend your time, who you spend time with, has implications for this other person in your circle. And while in some ways that could be limiting, what you got for that is the opportunity to learn to love a human being. And if you gave yourself to that, if you studied that, if you let yourself change in order to accommodate learning to love, you became a richer, deeper, more complete person as a result. That's what happens when a person expands their circle. You may have children. And if you do, you can perhaps remember the time before you had children. Your house was quiet. You could sleep through the night. Your car was neat and clean. And then you put children in your life. You expanded your circle. And oh, with that came such great sacrifice. Now you find yourself up in the middle of the night caring for somebody else, missing work because your little child is sick, saving money for their future, going to movies you have no interest in. But for all that sacrifice, what did you get? You got the opportunity to create a human being. I mean, that is awesome. And you also got the opportunity to take responsibility for growing a life from almost nothing and making it meaningful and rich and solid and strong. So every time you expand your circle, it requires that you change, that you learn new things, that you change your way of being. And that's so good for human beings. It's my theory that a great person, whomever you might consider great, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, they're just ordinary people like you or me, but they expanded their circle so big. They took on the welfare of the world. And then they had to become a different kind of human being in order to execute on that responsibility. It's so easy for us to accept a certain size circle and to stop expanding ours. But when we do, we start to stagnate. It's so important that we keep continuing to expand our circle over and over and over again, bigger and richer and wider. So you can look at the natural circle expansion. You know, all of us started just caring about ourselves. Then many people took on caring for others, caring for our family. And perhaps you stopped there. But you could expand your circle bigger. You could care for your community, become involved in the community to shape the lives of other people. You could expand your circle still bigger to care for your country, to think of the issues that impact the country and what you as an individual could do to make things better. You could expand your circle to the world and take on whatever you can do to shape the world into being a better place. The bigger you expand your circle, the richer your life will be. So here's your circle homework. First, consider your past. Take time to think through your life journey. When and where did you expand your circle? I pointed to some issues where you might have expanded your circle. You might have gotten married. You certainly created friendships. Maybe you have children. Maybe you've developed a career because it was important to you. So list all the ways that you've expanded your life, your circle in the past, and then answer these two questions. Why did you expand it? What was the impetus? What was the dream you had? What were you trying to do? And then, how did expanding your circle change you? What did it do to make you a richer person? How have you benefited from the times when you've expanded your circle? Next, consider your present situation. What are you doing to expand your circle now? Have you become complacent? Has it been years since you expanded your circle? Are there things that you might consider that would be good expansions for you to take on now? Take some time and write those down. Next, we're going to talk about the circle factors. While it's so important for you to take on expanding your circle, I'm convinced there are 4 developmental factors that are critical if you're going to have a big and rich circle. And they come in some kind of an order. So let's talk about them, and we're just going to summarize because on the next lessons we're going to go in depth into each one. So we'll start with independence. What's independence? You think from the time you're little, you're trained to do what other people want you to do. If you want dessert, you got to eat your peas. If you want good grades, you got to please the teacher. If you want friends, you have to fit in and wear the clothes they wear, go to the places they go. We become used to becoming what other people want us to be. And often don't realize what we've lost is our uniqueness. In order to please others, we've sacrificed what makes me different from you. And it's that differentness that is my specialness. So mastering independence is about discovering, valuing, and displaying your uniqueness. Now, if you're good at independence, you can move to the next factor, which is power. It's our belief that everybody has a unique gift. We might call it your genius. It's your best play in life. It's something that you've been endowed with that makes you productive. Now, those who find their power and make that their career often experience an amazing shift. Instead of work feeling like work, work becomes a creative expression of who they are. So instead of feeling burdened by it or stressed by it, they embrace it and find joy in it and satisfaction. And because of that, they have a much better chance of being excellent at their work and being highly successful. So we believe it's really important, after you've discovered your independence, to find your power. Now, those who find their power often distinguish themselves among other people. They stand out. It's obvious they're unique. It's obvious they're gifted. It's obvious they're good. And so often they get so full of themselves that they lord their power over others. They're always showing off. They're expecting people to pay attention to them. And that being filled up, that narcissism, limits their capacity to be useful in the world. So people who have discovered their power next need to learn humility. And humility is taming your ego so that you actually have the experience of belonging to other people, experiencing the world as if they're your brothers and sisters. And when you learn to do that, it unleashes tremendous capacity to lead others who don't want to follow somebody who's full of themselves, but want to follow somebody who's compassionate, who's understanding, who's caring, who's sympathetic, who identifies with them. And the last factor in the circle development is purpose. So many people who've become successful because they've mastered independence, power, and humility still don't know what they're meant to do to contribute to the world. And so they take the resources that they've created and invest them only in themselves. They have 2 houses and they buy a 3rd house, or they have 4 houses and they buy a 5th. They have a yacht, but it's a 100-foot yacht, and now they need a 150-foot yacht. And it seems at some point absurd that there must be something else to do other than create more wealth, something with more purpose in it. So we believe if you master independence, power, humility, and purpose, you've discovered your life in all of its richness. You've expanded your circle as big as it could possibly be. And the last issue for lesson 2 is circle balance. So not only do you need to discover each of these factors, but you need to bring them into balance with one another. If any one stands out too big, it kind of distorts the circle and makes it more an oval. So you can look at this chart. Independence is fairly well developed. This person is breaking free of pleasing others and discovering what's unique to them. And clearly they have their power. They know their unique gift. They're invested in their genius. but they have very little humility and not so much purpose. So they're using their power, their gift, all for themselves. It's all about, look at me, see how good I am, see what I can do. It's all invested in themselves, and eventually people will be tired and weary of being around such a person, and their impact on the world will be limited by the lack of balance in their circle. So let's review what we covered in Lesson 2. Your circle and why it's important. Your circle defines why you get out of bed in the morning, and the size of your circle determines the quality and impact of your life. Expanding your circle and the implications. That everyone has expanded their circle over and over again in some ways, but many people stop expanding their circle at some time. And when you stop expanding your circle, you stop growing. And unless you continue to grow, you'll never discover all of your potential in life. And you won't build a life that's thriving. The 4 factors necessary to circle expansion. We talked about how important it is to discover your independence, to find your power, to learn humility, and to understand your purpose, what you're meant to do in the world. And then finally, how important it is to balance the 4 factors. If they aren't in balance, then your circle will be distorted, and the ability to function at your highest level will be limited. So I hope you've gained some really important insights for yourself from Lesson 2. As we move into Lesson 3, we're going to focus on independence and understand more about how independence contributes to a richer life of thriving. Thank you very much.